If you've not seen the Black Rainbow, it brings to mind something devilish from the canon of Christopher Lee himself. But in fact, it is the first film from Panos Cosmatos of Mandy fame. If you've not seen Mandy, be sure and check out Mandy and my excellent impersonation of Nicolas Cage in my analysis of Mandy. But before there was Mandy, there were many recommendations for Jay to do Beyond the Black Rainbow, and I've done it. I apologize. I took so long. Mandy was really good. But it took me seeing Mandy 3 times before I figured out why I liked Mandy and why it was so good. Beyond the Black Rainbow, and the rainbow immediately calls to mind the idea of Lucifer, illumination, the black sun of the occultists, of the left-hand path, the light beams that bring illumination. In fact, Lucifer himself. Right. Paul says that Lucifer, Satan, disguises himself as an angel of light in order to deceive. Now, this is 1983 for the setting. 1 year before 1984, very similar to Mandy. There's something about 83, 84 as perhaps a date for the coming of the final aeon, the Luciferian aeon, perhaps. Is that why Panos has chosen this date as important? It's worth considering, and again, we've been seeing this theme lately of the 80s popping up. What was going on in the Reagan era that was so important? Perhaps the erection of Skynet, right? That's definitely what DARPA was working on. Is that what's bringing the final Luciferian age? Perhaps. If you've heard my talks, I've gone into this, especially my talk I did at AV9. It also brings to mind the Esalen Institute because the film, just like Mandy, centers around a cultic-like New Age institute that's involved in healing and psycho gobbledygook called the Arborea Institute. Again, very similar to the Esalen Institute, although not located in California. Can you guess, spoiler alert, where the Arborea Institute is located? Well, it brings to mind what we just saw in the movie Us. It's an underground base, an underground facility. The Underground Mind Institute has a motto, and that motto is happiness, contentment, and inner peace. Oh, it sounds so good. Meanwhile, it's run by mad scientism madmen, mad scientist proponents, fiends of scientism. They are focused on neuropsychology. Guess what that means? MK Ultra. Absolutely. They're interested in neural pathways and controlling those neural pathways. New Age perfection. And he even mentions the New Age. Now, if you notice, you will see pyramids pop up everywhere. And that's because this is the control structure. The control structure really is a pyramid. It's not accidental that the dollar bill is a pyramid. It's not accidental that a pyramid is ancient Egypt. It's not accidental that a pyramid is the Masonic structure. It opens with the eye, the all-seeing eye, and the pyramid everywhere in this film. We're on session 1183, and we see that the character, the protagonist girl, I guess you could argue the bad guy is the protagonist, but the girl who is being experimented on, Lana, we see that she is undergoing all of these bizarre mind control experiments. And again, if you know about Dr. Ewan Cameron, if you've read my book, Esoteric Hollywood, if you've read the other books that deal with the history of mind control and MK Ultra, Search for the Manchurian Candidate, John Marks, Walter Bowart's book, then you know about this plan and that this really went on with people at the Mont Royal Institute. Now, the head of Arborea, interestingly enough, is also a product of this institution. He takes pills. He's on his SSRIs. He's taking his pills and his drops and everything else that you could think of. He is one of the zombies. And he's also mind bombing her. She's sitting around watching TV. And in every mental institute crazy person film, they're always watching cartoons. Who would let crazy people sit and watch cartoons? Cartoons are crazy. Why are crazy people in mental institutes always watching cartoons? That's just going to drive them crazy. Acting like crazy cartoon people. Bonking their heads with anvils. Jumping off of cliffs onto freeways like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Stop letting mental institutes play cartoons for people. Now, the doctor, we quickly find out, is not just a mad scientist. He is super doctor psychopath. And he is toying with the girl because this is, of course, what he's been initiated into. This is his whole mind control operation as well. And he says, I can guide you through these problems, girl. I will bring you to achievement. All this sort of self-help poster, motivational poster level nonsense. Now, she initially resists him pretty consistently. She seems to dissociate. And somehow there's something going on with him controlling her through his giant pyramid. We never exactly told and what's going on here, but that's kind of neat because it's almost like there's some kind of advanced technology that the Institute has developed that works directly to manipulate the mind. Calls to mind something like EMF, electromagnetic type stuff. Perhaps that's kind of 5G level stuff that's like zapping minds. Who knows? It seems to be something like that. But she keeps resisting him and appears to dissociate. And says, I want to see my father. And we find out, she says, I want to see my father. And so we find out she's some kind of orphaned or kidnapped. We don't exactly know at this point. But turns out the mad scientist knew her mother. We find out very quickly something sick is going on here, very dark, and he pulls out some later one of the people that works the Institute pulls out some documents and papers, and we see a weird mix of occult symbols, alchemy, and what looks to be plans to drug this girl. We also see robot schematics in these plans. We see rituals and microchip implants. So again, all of the hardcore mind control stuff is present here. And what does he tell her? He tells her, you are sick. The world is in chaos. You are sick. We're going to fix you. Then we figure out the twist. She, like Eleven in Stranger Things, seems to have powers. She seems to almost be psychically endued, to have some kind of telekinesis type powers. And she's being studied. And so we figure out, okay, so that's why they're doing all these tests on her. They're taking gifted people. If you saw the OA, the series on Netflix that kind of started out good and then ended in a really goofy, gay, weird way, the OA was using the same theme of MK Ultra involving testing on and manipulating gifted people. So Van Halen, I don't know why I wrote Van Halen, but there's something Van Halen about this. Maybe Van Halen's in the soundtrack, I can't recall, but basically Van Halen, and then Daft Punk pricks her. So there's a synthoid AI golem creature who is sent out to monitor her, and he pricks her. And so we learn that there's not just the mind control stuff. Connected to the mind control is also GMO, human experimentation in an underground base. I'm starting to see this theme. I'm starting to see it a lot. Maybe they're doing something like that underground. I don't know. But Dr. Orboria goes to find, the younger doctor, the mad scientist guy, goes to talk to the dying Dr. Orboria who set up the Institute. And we find out that he is the bumbling old blind creator. Once again, the Gnostic theme always present in Hollywood films, right? So the old blind creator god of the Institute, representing God the Father, and his demiurge son, the psychopath, He is totally out of the loop, has no idea what's going on, that his son's a total psycho, even though we find out why his son's a total psycho. The young doctor here then represents the demiurge controller, and the girl seems to represent the Sophia principle. So what we have is a Gnostic Luciferian telling. So the absent father god is represented by the dying old man. She is Sophia. She needs to be freed and escaped. She needs to escape her prison complex, the prison world. Right? This is classic Gnosticism. Now we have a flashback period where we see the younger doctor, that when he was in the institute as a child, presumably he was raised in this same way. And he goes into, this part's the crazy part, he sinks into a pile of black goo. His sessions, so to speak, were black goo baptism into the black light, the black rainbow. Total satanic Luciferian initiation. And once you see this scene, you're not going to doubt me. It absolutely is that, and it's not even debatable. It's totally clear. And so as a result of his Luciferian satanic baptism into the black goo, where he ends up in hell world, and his old persona, his old being, his old whatever melts away, and he comes out of it this new reborn black oil goo being. He's essentially a moonchild, perhaps. He is some kind of reborn satanic being, succubus type something. And we see it immediately he runs over to the mom's neck and bites her. He's become a cannibal. He's been reborn into this vampiric cannibal state. And what's crazy about this is that Panos seems to be saying, just like Mandy, right, with the cult and Mandy, is that this is what's behind the New Age. The New Age of Enlightenment you thought was run by a bunch of dumb hippies. And behind all them dumb hippies is a bunch of vampire demon cannibals. Cloned in underground bases. I mean, why does this theme keep coming up, right? And then we see Ronald Reagan on TV, and there's threats against the Soviets. Well, that was also in Mandy, right? Interesting. There's discussions of Noriega, which is interesting because Noriega was a CIA asset, if I recall, in terms of the drug operations. And then we find out that the evil young doctor is a GOP Nazi doctor, which I am sure that's plausible. Plenty of, I would imagine that the paperclip guys that were brought over that were in the Nazi programs did migrate into the GOP and the Democrat Party as well. So let's not be partisan here. But Panos seems to be continually harping at the Reagan era. He has an occult dagger that he calls the devil's teardrop, which is his ritual athame. So get this. The elite psychopath Republican doctor is actually a hardcore Luciferian, hell-bent on killing everyone. And we learn that this pyramid suppresses her powers. And the golem creatures are called sentionauts, and they are the sort of GMO mutated children. And this has all been done on the basis of ceremonial magic. And then when eventually, by outsmarting and rebelling against the psychos in the Institute, the girl escapes. Come to find out, surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, we are in 1980s suburbs. What does she see? The final scene of the film is a young boy's house in the suburbs, and it zooms in on his toys, and his sentionaut is an action figure. Pretty based, dude, if you think about it, because it's almost like that stuff that you see in movies that later becomes an action figure that you were playing with in the 80s. What if some of that stuff is real? What if they're building that stuff in underground bases? Thank you for listening. This is Jay Dyer from Jay's Analysis. Be sure to subscribe below. Buy my books. Help support my work. If you enjoyed this analysis, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.